everyone. Welcome to another session from Knowledge Hub by Sri Chaitanya. And this is a continuation of the botany session. In our last session, we have discussed about the plant kingdom. And we have completed with one of the very good divisions, that is the bryophytes. In this session, we are going to discuss about the pteridophytes. That is the first chapter from the pteridophytes. We will be completing pteridophytes in 2 sessions. So here, let's begin today, and I am there with you, Pratyusha, Senior Botany faculty, and in this lesson, we will be learning about the types and characteristics of pteridophytes. Okay, so let us begin with the simple characteristics of the pteridophytes. Okay, so for the first here, let us see that what we have called the pteridophytes. They are what? What do you see here in this different types of points? They are called as archegoniates. That means they have different types of male and female sex organs. Okay, so archegoniates, it means that they are possessing archegonia. That means they are possessing different types of male and female sex organs. Correct. Now, let's come to the next feature here of the pteridophytes, that is the embryophytes. So it clearly depicts that this pteridophytes, they have a good amount of embryonic stage. By this word, embryophytes means that they have a prolonged embryonic stage. Okay, so they have a prolonged embryonic stage and they have the embryos also. I mean, we have seen that immediately after zygote in many of the subdivisions of the plants, they start to undergo meiosis and they form something else. But here they have a proper embryonic stage in their life cycle, hence they are called as embryophytes. Let's come to the next feature. They are also called as tracheophytes. By the tracheophytes, what do you mean by tracheophytes? It means that they have different types of xylem and phloem vessels. I mean, they have proper xylem and phloem. They have the tracheary elements present in them. Right. So, tracheophytes mean that they have the vascular system present in them. So, did you hear about any of the plants before the pteridophytes which were having the vascular system present? I guess no. So, in the bryophytes also, as we have learned, we did not have any vascular system present in them. But yes, in pteridophytes, we do have the vascular bundles present, and so do we have the xylem and the phloem, right? Okay, let's see the next point here. They are non-spermatophytes. So what do we mean by this? Although they are having embryos, they are embryophyte, they don't actually get formed into a seed. Okay, they will not be having an endosperm, and from there they will not be having an endospermic period. So this group till Pteridophyta, we are getting classified Pteridophyta into cryptogamy. The other group, which is including gymnosperms and angiosperms, they are coming under the spermatophyta, or they are also called as phanerogamy. Let's just give a quick review of this if you remember, okay, for your revision sake. Okay, so we have discussed about the different kingdoms, different groups under plant kingdom. So under cryptogamy, we are having the subdivision Thallophyta. Okay, then we have Bryophyta and we have Pteridophyta. Okay, now let's see the next one, cryptogamy. After that, so entire group of plants, it is divided into cryptogamy and phanerogamy. So under phanerogamy, this is also called as spermatophyta. Okay, And this is classified into two different subdivisions. What are those? This is classified into gymnosperms and angiosperms. Okay. So these two groups are considered under spermatophyta, whereas the remaining three groups, they are not considered under spermatophyta. Is it very clear, my dear students? Yes, I think it is. Let's go to the next point. Here what they are saying is that this group is relatively successful. This is the relatively successful land plants rather than more than the bryophytes. But there is a similarity between the bryophytes and the pteridophytes still. What is that? So they are still dependent on water for fertilization, which is a common characteristic between bryophytes and pteridophytes. Okay, my dear students, let's move to the next slide. Right? So I hope you have got all of it. And also for a quick revision for you all, I have given again the differences, the distribution of the plant kingdom. Here we have all the different types. Right? Okay, let's see. Now, habitat-wise. Let's look at habitat-wise for the pteridophytes. Okay, so first thing which we are observing here is that the pteridophytes, so they are found in cool, damp, shady places through, although some of them may still flourish well in sandy soil conditions. What does this indicate? This indicates that they are not that much prone to the arid conditions. They required well-watered conditions for them to survive. Okay, that is very rightly got. Now let's see one more important point here is that the different characteristics, the different types of pteridophytes. Here we have got the different types of pteridophytes which include horsetails and ferns. Generally you can call pteridophytes into two types. You can call them horsetails and you can call them ferns, right? But they are not all the pteridophytes which you are looking at right now. Okay, so they have different types of rough surface pteridophytes which are the horsetails, and they have the different types of this broad leaf type of pteridophytes. These are the ferns. Okay, ferns, I guess all of you must have seen and they look really beautiful. Right, my dear students? Let's see the next conditions. Okay, next point in the plant. Here, let's talk about their plant body. Here it is. Okay, so the main plant body is a sporophyte. What is the configuration of the sporophyte? Sporophyte is 2N. And this is the first group of plants with the sporophyte as a main plant body. Okay, so sporophyte as a main plant body, this is written here. So we have the leaves, roots, stem and all these things which is present in a selaginella. Okay, now let's see one more thing here. Let's observe sporophyte. Sporophyte is differentiated into true root, and one more thing is that from the sporophyte, the first taproot, then it gets replaced by adventitious roots. So it was starting to have taproots, but what happened is that it got replaced by the adventitious roots. Okay, so let's see one more thing here regarding the stem. Okay, so the stem, both aerial and underground stems are present for this particular plant. Okay, now next thing is that stem. Internally it shows epidermis, cortex and the stele. Okay, so what we'll learn about stele when I teach you the anatomy of flowering plants. In that chapter we will cover in details about what is the epidermis. Epidermis is the outer coat of the plant and cortex is the immediate next, and then we have the stele. Right. Now, let's see the leaves. Leaves is also an integral part of the plant. Okay. Okay. So now, we can see from here is that leaves are divided into two different types. So, I mean, in a particular plant, it's not always necessary. In a particular pteridophyte, it's always not necessary that they will be having either macrophytes or either microphytes. It can sometimes have both, or it can sometimes have only one type. Like for example, ferns can have only macrophyls. Okay, so ferns will be having large shaped leaves. That is called as a macrophyll. You can see these leaves are comparatively larger. Okay, then this ones, this is comparatively very small. So the leaves in a selaginella is called as microphyll, and the selaginella, this is just going parallel to the ground. Okay, so this is also called as a rhizophore. This particular plant type of the selaginella which is going parallel to the ground, it is a rhizophore type. Fine, did you get it? Now let's see another important characteristic. So there is one, did you know, from here, which is saying that what you can get from out of this. So these plants are the ones which evolutionarily they are the first terrestrial plants to possess vascular systems, vascular tissues, or we can call as vascular bundles. What are those vascular bundles, vascular tissue systems? They are the xylem and phloem. We did not observe xylem and phloem while we were talking about the bryophytes, but here it is present, right? Okay, let's see the next type. Okay, so here sporophytes, they bear sporangia that are subtended by leaf-like appendages. This is called as sporophylls. Okay, so sporophylls are what? Sporophylls are those which are you can call as the spore bearing leaves. So the spores, when they are landing on the ground, this particular spore, they can form a pretty new plant as a whole. Okay, so the spores are borne on the underside of the leaves, and these leaves which are bearing the spores on the underside of it, those types of leaves are called as sporophyll. Let me repeat it once more. See, in a plant you will be having majorly two types of leaves. One type of leaves, that is the leaves, they are the sporophylls. They are having sporangia. Sporangia is this. Okay, sporangia that are subtended by the leaf-like appendages. So the spores are borne on the underside of the leaves, and all total, if you call the leaf only, then you have to call it sporophyll. If you call it the entire bunch, then you will call it sporangia, right? I think it is very well understood, right? Now let's go to the next thing here. Now cones, but see, all the plants will not have altogether, they will not be having sporophyll altogether. So what do they have? They have cones. Okay, some of the plants, they have cones. Cones are what? It's a more compact structure than just like the leaves. Okay, now in some members, what is happening is sporophylls may form distinct compact structures, and this distinct compact structures formed by the spores, okay, this is called as the strobili or the cones, correct? So now example of such plants which is bearing the strobili or the cones, they are the selaginella or equisetum, right? So they will be like just going up like this. The leaves do not bear any spores here, my dear students. So the leaves will not bear any spores. They will just have the long extended leaves, okay? And these leaves on the top of it, they will be having the strobilus which is a compact structure, and that is like a cone. You will be learning about more cones when we discuss about the gymnosperms. In the gymnosperms, you will be having cones as the reproductive structure. Okay, so here also we are having cones in certain plants, right? Okay, let's go to the next one. Here we have spore formation. How does the spore formation takes place? Okay, on the first phase here, sporangia. The sporangia contain spore mother cells. So this spore mother cells, they undergo meiosis. Okay, meiosis to produce the haploid spores. So what happens? There is a sporangia. Where is a sporangia present? Now there can be the two locations of sporangia. Either they can be present underneath the leaves, or they can be present as compact structures on the cones. Okay, now let's go to the inner structure of a sporangia. Let's see this one. Okay, this particular one, that is an inner structure of a sporangia, this one. Okay, we are going into the cross section of this here. So inside this you are having the spore mother cell. So the spore mother cell is definitely having a 2N configuration. Spore mother cell, it is undergoing meiosis and it is forming the spores. Okay, so the spores is a product of the meiosis from the spore mother cell, and these spores are definitely what you can say is haploid. Yes, right? Yes, absolutely, it is haploid. Fine. Now let's see this here, plants. So the plants on the basis of spores, how it is like? On the basis of spores, it is divided into two types. Either it is called as homosporous. So homosporous, majority of the plants, this is Lycopodium, Dryopteris, homosporous. So we'll be discussing about homosporous plants in this particular lesson, and in the next lesson we will be discussing about the heterosporous plants. Okay, so homosporous is what? In the homosporous plants, the majority of the plants, okay. So let's see, Lycopodium or Dryopteris, they have only one type of spores, and heterosporous plants, they have different types of spores. They have one spore which is a small one, which is called as a microspore, and another type of spore which is comparatively larger, that is called as a megaspore. Okay, so heterosporous plants. Further, you have different types of heterosporous plants, and they are, you can call it closer in evolution to the higher plants. Okay, higher plants, you will be seeing two different types of gametes. One of them is the male gamete and the other one will be the female one. So it will be females, one will be the larger one, male gamete will be smaller. Here we have an almost similar kind of principle. Here we have heterospory, which is having the microspore and which is having the megaspore. Microspore is having the smaller one and megaspore is the larger one. Fine. Okay, let's see the next type. Okay, so homosporous plants, let's talk about more about homosporous plants in this particular session. So what are the homosporous plants? So they are having only one type of spores. Okay, now spores, they show, what do they show? They show exosporic germination. Okay, exosporic, what do you mean by exosporic germination? That is, they give rise to monoecious and independent gametophyte. So what will happen? The spores which is getting hatched, remember spores were what? Definitely the spores were haploid. So if the spores will land somewhere and the spores will start hatching, then what will happen? That particular plant will be a haploid itself. Let's see how the particular plant looks like. Okay, so here we have this plant which is a monoecious plant. How can you tell that the plant is a monoecious plant? By looking at it, right? It is having the female part, that is the archegonium, and also it is having the male part, male reproductive part, okay, that is the antheridium. Okay, now this is having rhizoids. Rhizoids are what? Exactly, this is the root like structure. Okay, in the plants, this is the root like structure, that is the rhizoids, and this particular one is called as a prothallus. So it's a prothallus, it's not completely a thallus. Thallus means, see here, why it is a thallus? It's a thalloid like condition. You don't have any different structure for antheridium, any different part which is coming out from it for the archegonium, or the rhizoids are a completely different part. Everything is present in that particular single plant. Hence, we can call it a prothallus. Let's see further. See here, they are giving rise to the independent gametophyte. This independent gametophyte is called as a prothallus. Okay, so the prothallus is having antheridium, which is the male sex organ, and archegonium, which is the female sex organ, and it is having rhizoids. So rhizoids are what? Again, just repeat once again, these are the root like structure. Okay, so rhizoids are the root like structure, and it performs the function of that of a root. Fine, I think you are clear with this part. Let's see now some other things from the homosporous plants. The homosporous plants, they undergo a gametophytic generation. And in this gametophytic generation, we can see that they are having a male sex organ. This is the antheridia. Okay, and the female sex organ is called as the archegonia. So it will be possessed inside one particular gametophyte only. Okay, one particular gametophyte will bear both of this together. Okay, now one more thing. Sex organs present on the same thallus in homosporous plants is, this is termed as monoecious. Why we are calling it monoecious? Last time also we called it monoecious because the sex organs are present on the same thallus in this homosporous plants. Okay, now let us look at the life cycle of these plants. Okay, let's see this. So we'll start with, where will we start with? Let's start with a normal mature plant, that is a sporophyte. Okay, let's see the sporophyte plant. What is happening? This is the life cycle of a homosporous plant. Okay, so after doing this, we'll be solving some questions for NEET, and in the next session, we'll be doing about the heterosporous plants. Okay, let's look at the life cycle. Fine, so here let's see the sporophyte first. So the sporophyte, which is definitely belongs to the sporophytic generation. So you can call the green, this one. Okay, this is a diploid, or this is, let's change the color. This is coming under sporophytic generation. Okay. So what about this sporophytic generation? This one is having a sporophyte. Okay. And the sporophyte is having the sporophylls, or the leaves which is bearing the spores underneath here. Okay. So this is the sporophylls. The sporophylls are also definitely 2N. None of them here is belonging to N, or the haploid generation. Fine. Next thing here is that sporangium. So here the sporophylls 2N, they are in the inner structure of it, they are having sporangium. Fine. Now going inside the sporangium, there are inside sporangium, there are certain spore mother cells. Okay, so this spore mother cells will be undergoing meiosis, and after this will be forming spores. Now from here, the spore formation wise, the haploid life cycle, or what we call as gametophytic generation, will be starting. So from here, or from the spores, what will happen is that the spores will hatch, mature. They will be converted into the prothallus present here. Okay, so the prothallus will be having the antheridia. The antheridia will be having the antherozoid. Okay, the antherozoid is N. So the antheridia and the other one, okay, the female part is the archegonia. Okay, so the archegonia is a female part, antheridia is a male part. So archegonia will be liberating the female gamete and antheridia will be having the antherozoid. This is the male gamete. Both of them will fuse to form the zygote. Okay, zygote is 2n. Number, zygote is 2n, and from here the zygote will be forming the embryo. Okay, so the zygote will be forming the embryo. From here the embryo will be maturing to form the sporophyte. Fine, so got the entire life cycle of this plant. Okay, so now time for you to do some of the important NEET level questions. Let's see the first question. So let's see what is the common feature amongst bryophytes and the pteridophytes. Okay, so the first feature. So in bryophytes and pteridophytes, okay, so transport of the male gametes, this requires which of the following pollinating agents? So first one is birds, second one is water, third one is wind, and the fourth one is the insects. Okay, so let's see. What is the answer, my dear students? Yes, of course you are correct. So we are following here what? We are undergoing zooidogamy. So zooidogamy is what? Transfer of the gametes due to the presence of water. Okay, so transfer of, see, if you don't recall the term, please go and look in NCERT, because it will be present in the bryophytes as well as the pteridophytes. Okay, fine. So transfer of the gametes due to water is called as zooidogamy, and this feature is pretty much common in the bryophytes and in the pteridophytes also. Okay, okay. So now let's go to the next question. So one more question, okay, my dear students. Let's see here what is there. Pteridophytes. This differ from the bryophytes. How it differs from the bryophytes? Previously what we have done, how they are similar to the bryophytes, and this is how it is different from the bryophytes. How it's different? Let's see this. Different from the bryophytes and thallophytes in having what? Number one, vascular tissues. Number two, motile antherozoids. Number three, archegonia, and number four, alternation of generations. So which one of the following do you think bryophytes and thallophytes don't possess, which is possessed by the pteridophytes? Yes, my dear students, you are very right. I hope so. It is the vascular tissues which is present in the pteridophytes and not present in the bryophytes and thallophytes. So thank you all very much for joining the session. So this is the first part of the pteridophytes. In our next class, we'll be completing the topic of pteridophytes with much more information about the different types of the heterosporous plants and also 4 different classes of the pteridophytes. So now, in order to know more about us, about what Knowledge Hub by Sri Chaitanya is, please do scan the QR and let us know, let us reach you better. So thank you all my dear students once again, and please do attend my next session. And if you have really liked this session, so please do like, share and subscribe.